From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a WisPolitics Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. I'm Abigail Evans, and I'm here in the office with my colleague Kate Morton to talk about an interview she did with Senate Minority Leader Dianne Hesselbein about the state budget. Could you tell us more about what you talked about?
Yeah, Abigail. So we really just focused on the budget negotiations. We also talked a little bit about the pros and cons for Democrats in the state budget.
All right, let's get to the interview.
All right. Well, thank you again, Senator Hesselbein, for joining me today. I think to get us started off, just kind of talking about the budget, can you just give me some insights into the negotiating process for you, specifically as the Senate Dem leader?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate being able to have this interview with you. We've been following the budget process. Certainly, Governor Evers laid out a bold vision for the state of Wisconsin, which I was really excited about. Unfortunately, the Republicans on the Joint Finance Committee stripped everything out of the budget, which was really unfortunate. So we weren't really sure what was going to happen with this budget. What were they going to put back? Were they going to do it completely new? We weren't sure. But I was watching what my Senate Republican colleagues were saying all across the state when they were being interviewed, whether they were going to be voting for a budget or not. It used to be that the Senate Republicans had a rule, like a 17 rule, that they needed 17 votes coming out of the Republican caucus to pass something. And it was pretty clear looking at social media posts and other things that wasn't going to happen. So I was brought to the table in late June. At that time, when I was brought to the table, when it was clear Republicans needed Democratic votes to get this across the finish line, the Republicans were proposing like an $87 million in cuts to the university system, which would have just been devastating. And after I spoke with President Jay Roth, I was like, what does that even look like? What would that even do to the university system? And really, I was worried that the peril of 2-year campuses and maybe a 4-year comprehensive might have to go away with those big cuts, and we just couldn't have that happen. There's also like a mere 5% increase in reimbursement to special education, and there was nothing on the table for direct payments to childcare. So that's sort of where it was when I walked in the room, and knowing that the Senate at least would need Democratic votes to pass the budget on time.
Yeah, so we know the dynamic was a little bit different this time around. You had more seats for Dems in the Senate this time around. How do you feel like that impacted your ability to have kind of more of a stake in the negotiations?
Yeah, fair maps are extremely important to the state of Wisconsin, and this is a clear demonstration of that. So important for us to be at the table. We only had 11 Democratic seats last time. We were, even passing a budget, and we were able to move to 15 Democrats to 18 Republicans, and knowing they couldn't come up with the votes for the budget was extremely helpful going forward. I really do feel that if Republicans had 17 votes or 18 votes to pass a budget, they would have really it would have been terrible draconian cuts to every single agency in the state of Wisconsin. And some of them were, talking about a budget like the federal government and wanting to doge Wisconsin and really cut things down to bare minimum, where there had just been a crash and burn all over the state of Wisconsin. So I'm very glad that Democrats could be at the table. Since fair amounts mattered, we had more Democrats that are willing to work on this in a bipartisan manner.
Yeah, do you feel like it was a disadvantage at all for you to be coming to the table later on in the discussions?
I don't think so. I know there are negotiations in the beginning with the governor and Speaker Voss and Senator LeMahieu, and those sort of fell apart by the wayside. But then as we got in, closer to that deadline, they came back to the table. And so I was invited there
Yeah.
to sort of craft this at the end.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to ask you about, your counterpart in the assembly, Greta Neubauer, she voted against the budget and she talked a little bit about, concerns for her district with education funding, but she also kind of mentioned the fact that Assembly Democrats weren't at the table in that process. Do you think they should have been involved at all?
That wasn't a decision that I was able to make. Certainly, I get along well with Leader Newbar. Really, this budget was really about tough negotiations, compromise, and it was a spirited discussion. We forged a budget that wasn't perfect. It's not the budget that Democrats will be putting forth when they're in the majority, but it does address some of the priorities that Wisconsinites have clearly expressed. Funding our K-12 public schools, make childcare more affordable, and invest in the university system. And I think Wisconsinites are really right to expect that their elected leaders and representatives will come to the table through negotiation and compromise, and we can get meaningful work done in the best interest of the state. We also were under a deadline with the federal government to pass this on time, so we were able to get that done. But there are certainly members of my Senate caucus and in the Assembly that voted against the budget. And really, that's what fair maps do. Fair maps let you, represent your district and however you think is the best way to go forward.
Yeah, I guess talking about the ups and downs of the budget, where would you say are some bright spots for you?
Yeah, some of the bright spots, about a $1.4 billion increase in spendable revenue and the largest percent increase in the special education reimbursement rate in state history. Now, we fought for 60. We really wanted 60. We ended up at, 40 and 45. So when I got to the room, it was 32 and 35. So, I mean, there's been significant progress. We invest more in 330 million in childcare, including direct payments to childcare providers. I don't believe that would have happened if Senate Democrats were at the table. And the university system will receive its largest increase in over 20 years. I mentioned that timeline. It's important to know that, that timeline with the federal bill going forward. Because of that, we were able to get a maximum of 6% to increase our hospital assessments, which we had to do before Donald Trump signed that big, ugly bill. So, it was important to get it done. It was important to get it done in time. And I just feel fortunate that I was able to be at the table to get this done. But I do want to emphasize, and I can't say it enough, this is not the bill that I would have wanted to write if I was the one with all Democratic votes in charge, right? This is not a bill that I will hope that we get when hopefully we get a trifecta. We will be putting more money into K-12 education, university, and into childcare as well.
Yeah, so you talked about some of the bright spots. What about some of the missed opportunities? What are areas where you could have done something or done something more in the budget?
Well, I mentioned special ed reimbursement. I was really hoping we could get closer to 60. I know Superintendent Underly had she put a big vision out there for 90%. The governor was at 60. I was hoping we could at least get to 60. So I was disappointed in that. Also, no direct pupil aid. That was unfortunate. We really should be doing that. So, once again, that just shows some of the places where we couldn't get things done. There's nothing also done in the stewardship fund. We really wanted to put something for Knowles Nelson in there, and we couldn't get that done. I have a feeling this fall we're going to do something with Knowles Nelson, I've been told, and also looking at corrections. The governor laid out a big plan how to help corrections all over the state of Wisconsin and close the Green Bay facility, which really does need to be done, but it has to be done in a way that makes sense. And so I'm hoping to have those conversations this fall with my Republican colleagues to see if we can work together to make that happen.
Yeah, on the Knowles Nelson conversation, I guess could you give us an update on where that stands and maybe where you see it going in the fall at all?
Yeah, in the negotiations that I had with Speaker Voss and Senator Lemahieu, I mentioned that I'd like this to be part of this, compromise that we had going forward, and they both said we're going to be working on that in the fall. So stay tuned on that. And I believe Senator Tustin and Representative Kurtz have a bill out there, so we'll see moving forward.
I guess, is there anything else that you want to add on the budget process and your hopes for the future?
Yeah, a couple of things we're able to do that I was really proud of is getting some of these university projects done. University of Wisconsin Lacrosse has been waiting for it since 2014 to get a building done. They've been wanting to get that enumerated and built, and we were able to fight and get that in the budget. Also, there's a library at Polk Library at University of Wisconsin Oshkosh that has mold. And just a few weeks ago, some of the pipes burst, so the librarians couldn't even go in there to get the books and try to save things. So I'm really glad that we got those things done. We have planning dollars for the humanities building at UW-Madison, which is so important because that building needs a lot of help. So I'm looking forward, just to kind of seeing what we're doing for higher ed all across the state. And I really want people to know that they can go to their community college, their tech school, or the university and figure out what they want to do with their life, or go into the workforce. I mean, that's also a great option and for our trades and things like that. So I just don't want to have any young person be stifled because of where they live and their zip code. I want everyone to be able to chase the dream that they have inside their hearts and minds.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. If you want to learn more about the state budget, you can head to WisPolitics on State Affairs and check out the budget blog. But for now, I'm Abigail Evans.
I'm Kate Morton.
And thanks for listening to this episode of WisPolitics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.